You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back with another episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Well, this has been quite the April, right? All these April showers, all of this weather. One moment is warm, one moment is a little chilly. Like, is it a sweater? Is it a cardigan? Like, what is it, right? It has been a week on so many different levels. I gave you all a special edition episode, which we do have some updates. There are some updates. But it has been a month, and I am just taking it all in, in so many different ways. Wrapping up this semester at CCP. I am teaching summer courses. I am teaching public speaking in the summer, which I'm excited about. But the spring semester is about to wrap up a week from Monday. So it'll be a week, and April 21st. And then I have a nice little break. And then summer courses for the first half of the summer begins on May 12th. So that's happening. But I got a nice little break, which is going to be nothing but graduations, because I got Mr. Johnson's graduation from grad school. My younger brother is graduating from Temple finally. And I got all the things in between. We got Beyonce, we got Cowboy Carter. It's a lot happening. So I'm wrapping up this time with CCP. But I would be remiss to say that I am really going to miss our now fired president, Dr. God Generals, who was an incredible president of CCP. He was one of the people who kind of recruited me and really wanted me to come. And I was an adjunct, and now I'm a fellow. And the news came out this past week that the board basically did not renew his contract, which was up in June. They're not renewing it. He's been there for over 10 years. I think about 11 years he's been there as the president. He's done outstanding work. They're not renewing his contract. And not only that, they put him on paid leave. So he's not even on campus anymore. We won't see him on campus. He's not in leadership or anything. So it was like a, paid leave, and they're not renewing his contract. And he got paid over $280,000 a year. And based on the contract, that they let him go without any explanation or reason, that is, beknownst to us, that he gets his full salary paid out as a severance in other situations or whatnot. The board is not giving any explanation. People have been hitting me up asking me, what do I know? What I will tell you is that this is internal politics. This is a matter of egos. It is nothing salacious. There is nothing criminal. This is a matter of ego clashing within the board and the president and whatnot. Now, 2 out of 15 of the board members did not participate. And that was the financial leader of the finance director for the city, Rob DeBlow. He's on the CCP board. He did not participate in this vote. He was not present. This vote was taken on Thursday morning, very abruptly. No explanation, none of that. There was also Morgan Cephas, who's the state rep. She also did not participate in the vote and was not present. So the 13 that were there unanimously voted to not renew General's contract and to put him on, paid leave. What I've heard from sources is that there was some personality clashes with generals and some of the board members, and there were some matters of which they didn't like certain decisions he made that dealt with personnel hiring. I know more tea. I'm not going to name names. This is very, I can't name names in the situation, but let me just say, some of them board members, if you look at who's on that board, which is public record and public knowledge, you make the call. Use common sense. Pay attention to who recently left CCP, who's currently on that board. Those who are movers and shakers in the city that are really into the politics and know this stuff, make some phone calls. Y'all know what it is. And to be honest, Dr. General's overall, I think, has done a very good job. I mean, his, reviews were above average. His reviews were positive. I mean, out of all the presidents we've lost, at this point, we've lost every major college in Philly. CCP, Penn, Temple, Drexel, all have new presidents. Now, the Drexel president, Fry, has went to Temple. Now he's the president of Temple. But we don't have any black presidents now. We initially, a year ago, had 2 black presidents. We had, Jason at Temple. We had Dr. Generals at CCP. Now we have no black presidents at any of the major colleges in Philly. Now, of course, there's Cheney and Lincoln, but they're not even in Philly, and those are HBCUs. But our colleges do not now have black leadership. We also, as of right now, don't know who the interim president will be. I keep hearing a name, Veronica Joyner, has been tossed around. This is not a confirmed, this is all speculation, but Veronica Joyner name has been popping up in some conversations I've had with people on background, either for an interim president or whatever. But Veronica Joyner, and she's a big charter school presence, I believe. Veronica Joyner's name has been tossed around in circles that I've had conversations with. Now, I don't know if she's going to have the position or not. I don't know if she's good or bad in between. I'm going to reserve my opinions. I am a employee of CCP. I am in the fellowship program. So I'm just, I'm just doing reporting right here. But her name has been brought up. But I can't confirm any details or anything, but I know she has been considered a person of interest. And that's not been reported by any major outlet, Ernestly speaking. We get sources of information over here too. And sometimes the news informs themselves by what we do here on this podcast. So just putting that out there. But it has been a very interesting time. There was the strike a couple of weeks ago that got averted. Now we done lost our president. We're about to have a May 3rd commencement, my first CCP commencement, and we don't have a president. We're about to have a major fundraiser, the Black and Gold Gala, which is a big fundraiser for CCP, and that is in June. We don't have a president. And as a result of that, the chair of the CCP Foundation, who is the wife of Pastor Waller, she has resigned in protest of this decision. So there is some backlash already happening around CCP around this decision. Personally, I always tell people it's not about what you do, it's how you do it. That's what I said about District Attorney Larry Krasner, right? It's not about what you do, it's how you do it. And so there's just a lot there. But I know Dr. Generals will be on his feet very soon. He's a very smart man. He's 69 years old. I didn't even know he was 69. He looks good. Because for a 69-year, I did not know he was a senior citizen. He is in shape. He looks good. I did not know he was 69. I would have probably put him, that's that black don't crack. I would have probably put him at 55-ish, maybe. 69? This man was born. Wow. I'm trying to make it make sense. He was born in 1955. Who would have known? Wow. Just wow. Black don't crack, y'all. So yeah, it's a lot going on there. But wrapping up this season strong. My students are ready to graduate, ready to go to the summer. Some of them are actually going to try to take my public speaking course, which I'm excited about, and they're doing their thing. So, CCP is moving along. I had a wonderful time in Atlantic City. It was a nice staycation with Mr. Johnson and I. We just had a cute, romantic staycation. Anytime we can find an excuse to get out the city It's got to be something nice. It's got to be something, that really feels like we're not in the city. And so Atlantic City is sometimes that place for us. I love Atlantic City. I know people always have their little talks about like Atlantic City. I think people do Atlantic City wrong. I think some people that are from Philly, this is what I'm talking about. I'm speaking specifically about Philly folks. I think for us, Atlantic City may not be the full-fledged 10-day vacation like it is for some people, right? But for us, right, us Philadelphians, right, it can be a nice staycation. And I say staycation, you're like, what did you mean staycation? Because it's not, Atlantic City is not that far from Philly. Like you can get a quick drive. It's like, an hour or something. It's not that far. There's parts of Pennsylvania. Getting sometimes to Chestnut Hill can feel like I might as well go to Jersey if I'm going to drive this far. Like there's just so many different ways to do it. But I feel like Atlantic City, at least for us, is like a weekend getaway, a 2-day getaway, an overnight stay situation. Go out, have a nice time, go have drinks, just get away from just familiar faces. And so it's always nice to have a cute staycation in Atlantic City. So we went to the Hard Rock Cafe. We went to the Hard Rock Cafe, the Hard Rock Casino Resort, which they do have a Hard Rock Cafe spot, which is really fun. And I really like that resort because it feels age appropriate. So like I'm in my early 30s, so is Mr. Johnson. There's a lot of casinos in Atlantic City, and let me just be very clear, not all casinos are the same. Not all these resorts are the same, right? Ocean is very nice and upscale. I feel like Ocean is for like people my parents' age, my aunts and uncles. Very nice and luxurious, but does not have that youngish feel. But very nice though. Grown and sexy, like super grown and sexy. Grown. Like friends of mine who may not have my networks or money that say, look, I want to go to Atlantic City. How can I go and not break the bank? Ocean is definitely a little bit higher end. I can see it as if you wanted to have an Atlantic City, like if you were like on some honeymoon type situation, you didn't want to be in Philly at the Four Seasons, I get it. Ocean would be an alternative for that. Ocean is like if you're grown and you really want to have a spa and you really want to splurge, it's for that, right? Then you got Borgata, which is very more upbeat and fun and lively. But Borgata is also a high roller, spend some serious money, but also kind of like, I feel like late 30s, early 40s. It could be a nice girls trip or a friends trip, like if you do it with a bunch of people. Very romantic as well. No one in their 20s should be in Borgata. Early 30s, it's still a little bit more on a fancier end, right? Now, Tropicana, I can see my younger brother going to Tropicana. Like Tropicana is definitely for young folks that want to drop some money. Early 30s for sure. Definitely got the nightclubs, got all types of ball on a budget energy. Tropicana, I think, is a universal spot for a lot of folks, right? Like them, right? They're fun. They're a good time. They're a turn up. That's a turn up. It's giving, 20s millennial Gen Z want to have an Atlantic City experience where they can get the real splurge. It's giving old Vegas energy, but like Tropicana is definitely that energy, right? Then you have Caesars. Caesars is definitely older gambler. You go in there to gamble. It's not for young people. There's a couple of restaurants there that you can slide into for a reservation, but the overall energy is giving much older. Okay, so this is for people in their 40s and up. Bally's is for the old folks. It's for senior citizens. It's where they go. It's old Atlantic City energy, old casino energy, definitely for the gamblers, but much older gamblers. And then you have Hard Rock. Hard Rock is just, to me, the central. It is the sweet middle. This is for my millennials. This is not for Gen Zers. A couple of Gen Zers can go if you got money, you got daddy's money, they got some money for you, right? But this is the sweet spot for my folks in their 30s. Tropicana is fun. It is fun. It's fun, ratchet fun. And we do like a nice little Atlantic City ratchet fun. Let me be very clear. I enjoy Tropicana for a nice ratchet good time at the casino. But if you want something that's mature, you want something that's organized, you want something that's giving elevated VIP status, Vegas status, but on a budget. Hard Rock in Atlantic City is the perfect spot for that. Like, they have great musical acts. I mean, the Pitbull for New Year's is popping. Kelly Clarkson is going to be there in May. Like, next month, Kelly Clarkson is coming. They have really good musical acts. Like, they got Khalid coming later this year. They have a really good roster of really relevant musical acts that are very affordable for tickets. They also have very familiar food, restaurants that are there that are really upscale, but also really reasonably priced. There is steakhouses, family friendly for those who do want to make a family trip out of it. Also, very mature, age appropriate dining. So we went to Kuro, which I've been there before, but Kuro is popping. It's sushi, it's bento boxes, there's Japanese cuisine. That is a really fun spot that just felt like, yes, I'm in Atlantic City, but I feel like I'm in Vegas, but this feels like my energy, the music, the sounds, the vibes, the food was really good. I had a good time. Mr. Johnson, he's he can be a picky eater, but he really liked it. And the cocktails were just fabulous as well. We went to see a show, which was a comedy show that was there, that was very fun and very, very much up our alley. It was called My Big Gay Italian Casino Adventure. There's this guy named Anthony who is gay. He does a lot of big comedy show plays and acts and things of that nature. And this was a play, but comedy, but casino themed, and it was a great time. It was really funny. It was a good time. And again, a show like that fits for Hard Rock, where a lot of people that was in the crowd were in their 30s, early 40s. It was very millennial centric, very funny, very just upbeat, and just represents, I think, a new generation of Atlantic casino goers. I felt like that was what I was sold on. And then afterwards, we had a nightcap at Hard Rock Casino, Hard Rock Cafe, which is, they have, of course it's Hard Rock, but they have it there. It was fun because it was not karaoke night. It was a performer who did all these popular like show tunes and songs, and all of the songs were like millennial core. Like, they did Avril Lavigne, they did NSYNC, they did Britney, they did early Gaga, they did some Chappell Roan, which is current. Like, but it was like such a vibe. And like a lot of those type of bars and restaurants, I feel like when you go to certain shows, you feel like, oh, it's like 90s or 80s music and you feel aged out and you don't feel like this is a good fit for you. This just feels like it was like the spot for me and the place for us to just enjoy good music, but also did not feel out of place. It was just a vibe. And so I really do like Hard Rock Cafe, Hard Rock Casino. It is a little bit more, but the quality level is different. Like, Tropicana's hotels are nice. No shade. But Atlantic, but Hard Rock just has a more of a built-in brand, entertainment, quality. You pay a little bit more, but you do feel the difference, and you do feel the quality at a higher level. But you can always slide over to Tropicana to go to some raunchy nightclub and get a little ratchet. But they got nightclubs at Hard Rock too, and they're more curated, and they're definitely fun. So it is a good time. It was a very good time. It was a well-needed, nice little spring escape before we get into summer, because summer's gonna be lit as well. So I did have a good time there. Also, the Lit Brothers, or the three of the Lit Brothers. We always joke around, call ourselves DC3, Destiny Child 3, which, it was Beyonce, myself, Jamarcus, Dr. Gio, of course. Josh had another prior engagement, but we're all getting ready for Chicago in May, because we're getting ready for Chicago. All eyes on Chi-Town. But we got together and had a good time. The three of us got together for this incredible event called Botanicals in Bloom at Blue Coat at Philadelphia Distilling, that's in Fishtown. It was a great event. You all saw some of my IG stories. It was themed around flowers in spring. So they had like cherry blossoms on the cookies. They had cocktail themed with florals. They even let us make our own botanical they put in it, the cocktails, bitters. And I made one called Bitches in Bloom, and it was all in theme. But it was a really good time. The cocktails were really popping, and You can definitely check out Philadelphia Distilling and see their new spring cocktail menu, which is very poppin'. It is one of my favorite spots in Philadelphia. It never gets old. There's always something new going on. And they're very intentional about how they curate their events. Like, they have never had a flop event, in my opinion. I feel like every time Philadelphia Distilling really tries to create an event, they really do research. They really put a lot of thought into it. They really get creative about how they produce and what kind of people that they work with and collaborate with, what kind of ingredients they use. Like, it's a very thoughtful group, and they just do not miss. They've been in the game for now 8 years, and they've been doing their thing. And I've been with them ever since they've been established. I've always loved their cocktails and their products, and I'm always gonna be a Blue Coat girl. So it was dope. This week I was also at Tackling Media Literacy. There's a group called Spill the Beans. It is a Black podcasting event with a guy named Marquise. He has his own podcast called Keep It on a Beam. And he does this event called Spill the Beans, or I think it's called Keep It on a Bean, not Beam, Bean. And Keeping in the Bean is the podcast, but it's called Spill the Beans, which is a collaboration with a coffee that he has called Leroy's Coffee, but he also collaborates with other people. They do coffee making and drinks and also merch. It's really fun. It's really Afrocentric, Black-owned businesses, Black topics, Black folks. It's a really fun event. And I did not even know what I was signing up for. I'm on this podcast. I was on this guest podcast with my girl Whitney, The Reclaimed on Instagram. She goes by The Reclaimed on Instagram. It was myself, it was Whitney, and it was also a journalist named Marquise. Yeah, it was like multiple Marquises in the room. I didn't realize Marquise is a very popular Black name, but it's a very popular Black millennial name. Like, I feel like a lot of Black millennials, guys I know, that is very millennial centric. Like, my name is Ernest. Ernest is not a Black millennial name. Ernest is a Black boomer name, okay? A lot of boomers that are Black are named Ernest. And if you know anybody named Ernest that was born that is not a millennial, they were named after someone else. Fun fact, my father, who was deceased, his name was Ernest. I am actually a junior. Fun fact. But yeah, I am named, my name is not a millennial Black name, okay? I don't know any Ernests that were, anybody naming their child Ernest that's Black, that is not named after their father, their uncle, their great-grandpa or something, okay? So I am one of those byproducts of that. I don't know any other Ernests that are Black that were not named after their father or someone else. Like, I have a fraternity brother who is I want to say he's a Gen Xer, but Black don't be cracking. He might be a boomer, but I think he's Gen Xer. But his name is Ernest, but he is like in his, I believe, like late 50s, early 60s. He's named after his father, who definitely is a boomer. So I say all this to say that the name Ernest no one Black is naming their children Ernest unless it's someone else in the family name already named Ernest. Like, the show Atlanta, as you all know, had Donald Glover, and Donald Glover's character was named Ernest, but they always called him Ern for short, but his real name in the show was named Ernest. Yeah, that's an old Black name. That's an old soul Black name, okay? But Marquise is a name that is millennial coded. I don't know any Gen Xers that is named Marquise that is Black. If you know if you can find me one that is like 45, 46 named Marquise, I would be shocked. Most of the Marquises I know are millennials, because I feel like there was like names that a lot of Black parents named their kids in the millennial era. Like what did the Gen Xers name their millennial kids, right? Some names. Aiden. A lot of Afrocentric names. Craig is definitely one. Chadwick or Chad. Couple of Chadwicks. Then we stick with the basics. George, Joseph. Like y'all know Mr. Johnson's name is Barry. He's named after his father. Because again, Barry ain't no name. No one's naming their kids, millennial kids, Barry. He is named after somebody. And it's not Barrington for short. It's straight up Barry. But his father's named Barry. And his father is, I don't even think his father's a Gen Xer. I think his father's a boomer. Maybe a Gen Xer. Maybe like an older Gen Xer. But those names, y'all, like, That's somebody named after someone's father. Like, ain't nobody waking up saying, I'm going to name my child Barry. That is not already a name. That is an old black name. We have a lot in common there. But yeah, those names, those types of names are all historic. They're all connected. And so I always tell people, you know, origins of names, especially black names, there's origins and connections to them, right? So yeah, there's a lot of black millennial names that are in surface, like Madison, you know, Amanda. I would say Amanda is definitely a black millennial name. If a girl you know named Amanda, I don't know that many older black women named Amanda. I feel like a lot of the Amandas we know are in this era, if they're black. Couple names. Especially like a lot of the, you know, Saquon and Jabir, Kabir, Samir, all them, these Philly names, right? These are all millennial coded. You know, Omar is a little older. Omar is definitely Gen X. Chris is just universal. We always knew of Chris. Tony, Anthony, definitely Gen Xer. I know a lot of Gen Xers named Anthony and Tony. They pass it on to their kids because we got some now, right? Jordan is millennial coded. Jordan is very millennial coded, for sure. Jordan is definitely millennial coded. Joshua and Josh, that's Gen X, but definitely millennials, though. Okay? I'm just thinking, like, my friend, my bestie, Jamarcus, that's millennial coded. La Rodney, definitely. Rodney, Gen X. La Rodney, millennial. Like when we started putting the La Chris's on things, that became millennial coded. Now you could say Latoya, right? You know, the women did the Latoya. They did that Latasha. That's definitely Gen X coded right there. But for guys, when we started doing it for men and start playing those binaries with those names, that became more millennial. I'm not a linguistic, but I will say that there's something there. Just saying. It's my homework assignment. Start thinking about names that are black coded. Think about it. Especially when it comes to Philly. Okay? Manuel, that is definitely Gen X. Definitely Gen X. Okay? Manuel, Manny, all of that is Gen X coded. Definitely Philly. If you know a black person, Maurice, any of that, that is Gen X coded. I will give y'all that. Millennials, we can't claim that. That is definitely Gen X coded. So, you know, the more you know. But this event was, I digress, right? This was an event, this podcast episode. It will be coming out sometime this week. I will definitely drop the link when it comes out. We recorded. It was a very great conversation with some really great folks. It was 3 people. It was myself, Whitney, and a Marquise, and then the other host was Marquise. So there was 2 Marquises in the conversation. You know, unpack that how you would like. But there were multiple Marquises in the mix. So it was Marquise Francis, myself, and then there's also the other host was Marquise Richards. So Marquise Richards was the one. He has a show called Keeping It a Bean. That's his podcast. And he has a coffee called Leroy's Blend. And yeah, Keeping It a Bean is his podcast. But he was the moderator of the conversation, and I was talking to Marquise Francis and of course Whitney Roberts, but she also goes by Whitney Elise. And we were all in conversation. It was great. So good time, very good time. Love to see it. So great podcast. We're talking about media literacy. I don't want to tell too much of the podcast because I want y'all to listen to it. So once it drops, I will share it on my platforms, my social media platforms. But it was a very interesting conversation that divulged into a conversation around traditional media, which I reframed as corporate media, and you'll know why in that episode. We talked about independent media and specifically Black media in the independent media landscape, and how these shifting relationships and clashes, because we all represent, like I represent independent media. Whitney represents Black media, but she also has a little bit of independent media spirit. And Marquise Francis represents corporate media. He's at NBC 10, but not NBC 10, he's at NBC News, but he also worked previously at Yahoo. So we were talking about our careers and our paths and how it shapes the media literacy landscape. Because one of the things I tell people was, you can't even talk about journalism and media consumption if we don't talk about illiteracy, right? And in a city like Philadelphia, the majority of adults, a large swath of adults, are illiterate, period. Like they can't actually read at all. And so if you can't, or let me clarify that. A lot of them are functionally illiterate, meaning that they can read a menu, they can read a stop sign, they can read, typical signs on a wall. But if you was to get them to read a contract, a book, or an article, they would struggle. And in a city like Philadelphia, the way that Philadelphia's economy and work culture shifts, that's why we have, I think, in my opinion, a lot of labor jobs, because any of these technical, professional, suite level careers, our workforce is largely illiterate. They couldn't even be prepared to take on those jobs. And so there's a lot of factors as to why we don't get a lot of major headquarters sometimes, or we don't get big tech, or a lot of things, because our workplace, if we was trying to diversify it, it would not be equitable. And so I have always told people, you have to invest in a workforce that can tackle modern 21st century jobs, but also innovative, futuristic jobs. And that starts with public education. And if we don't invest in public education seriously, then we will never be able to invest in a generation. People keep talking about generational wealth. You can't have generational wealth if you do not have an educated population. If the way that people say we need to save SEPTA, we need to save public transportation, yeah, that's a great point. But we also need to save public education. We do not invest in public education the way that we care about public transportation, then we literally have a generation of people that will not be able to be competitive for these innovative jobs. They will always have to do labor jobs, service jobs. And let me be clear. I have to say this because people will misinterpret my words. I am not saying that labor jobs, that those types of jobs do not matter, not important. No, they do. But we need to be able to have agency and have the choice. And there are people, the way that Philadelphia's education is set up and our workforce is set up, there are people who don't have the choice to take on a skills trade job. I mean, that's all they can take, because they cannot actually get a job that requires them to be in a service work where they could do paralegal work. They could do actual jobs that require reading and writing skills at the forefront. They can't take a science, technology, tech job because of the way that the education system is worked. A lot of people cannot take those jobs. And so we always say to people, oh, there's nothing wrong with taking being in the trades. No, there's nothing wrong with that. What is wrong is that is the only options that we can provide a lot of our outgoing high school students. That college is not an option for them because the public education is so bad in a lot of these schools that if they was to go to college, they would drop out or flunk out very fast. Even on a community college level, I have seen that there are huge learning gaps for people who are graduating from high school in Philadelphia public schools, that when they come to community college, right, they're even struggling to write a full complete sentence or write a full paper, that there is a lot of learning curve. And I'm thinking to myself, if there was no community college resources available, some of these individuals might slide themselves into a 4-year college, but then will fail out quickly within a year or drop out within a semester because their high school has not really equipped them with enough resources and preparedness for them to be able to be ready, be college ready. And that is what's happening to a lot of our young Black men. And when they get into these HBCUs, they're getting accepted, but then once they get in, they are not able to be competitive enough to make it through and graduate on time. And so unless we address these broken public education systems, we will not be able to really prepare a generation to be set up for generational wealth in the ways that we keep talking about it. I hate the term generational wealth because I feel like a lot of times when people talk about it, they're not honest about the holistic value of it. That it's not just simply owning homes and buying cars and investing in stock. Like, okay, you can tell people to do that, but if you don't even have the bare means, if you can't read a contract, if you can't even be educated enough to functionally read and be functionally literate, be educated and be literate, the baseline to even having that type of wealth attainment or even considering that can't even happen. And so I just try to tell Black folks, how do we even talk about all this entrepreneurship stuff, all this generational wealth stuff, if we literally have a society and a population that is largely illiterate? Like, we can't even do, like, before we even talk about millionaire, billionaire class attribution of wealth, can we talk about sustainability? Can we just get our people to be literate? Can we get our public schools in these Black communities to be, can we hold them accountable enough to actually give them a decent education that they have the actual choice to choose between college or trades? Because right now, we're lying by acting like our students in these public schools have the ability to choose between college or the trades. They couldn't even go to college even if they wanted to. They couldn't even succeed in college even if they wanted to. So when we tell people college isn't for everyone, let's backtrack that a little bit and say, is college not for everyone, or is college not even for anyone? Right? Because the truth of the matter is that we're saying everyone or anyone. Like, we act as though, here I go. I wasn't even expecting to go in this direction, but it's really important for us to be honest about this. We act as though when our kids are graduating from these high schools, these public high schools, right, in Philadelphia, that they really have, unless they're in a masterman, and charter schools that people act like they hate so much, charter schools is providing right now for a lot of our Black students. People talk about charters and want to share on charters. And I can hear the critiques about charter schools. Unfortunately, the rate at which we're waiting for the government to step up and fund these public schools in the way that they need to be, our students do not have an option of college or the trades. They don't have an option because they're not prepared for college. So the only option they can take is trade or some type of, manual work job, right? That's it. So we lie when we say, oh, a lot of our kids are not going to college because college is for everybody. We have done a disservice that we have not even afforded them the opportunity to make an educated decision to say college is not for me. Because when I talk to a lot of these kids in high schools, right, when I go and talk to kids that I mentor and I actually talk to these kids in these public schools, when I hear them tell me about college, they're like, oh, I don't want to go to college. And if they was to tell me, you know what, I don't want to do college because I have other dreams and I'm very talented, I can sing, I want to be a musician, and honestly, college isn't for me, but they could read, they could write, and they just said that college for me is not an option because honestly, what I want to study and when I want to advance in, college was not for me for that. I could say, you know what? That's fine because you thought about it. You went to the college tours, you looked at the career path for you, and you made an informed decision to say college is not for you because it's just not for you because that's not what your taste is, right? But if you did go, you could be successful, you could graduate, but that's not your choice right now. I could respect that. Or better yet, you said, you know what, I want to do community college, right? Like, let me be very clear that there are students that I teach that are in community college that are brilliant. They did not want to go to 4-year college immediately because they wanted to build their way through this experience and know if it was right for them. They're about to finish their associate degree. Many of them have told me that they really realized that, you know what, with some time and some discipline, community college gave them the comfort and the confidence to now that they're ready to transfer to a 4-year institution and graduate and save some money. I'm proud of my students for that. But that is somebody who gave it a chance and understood it, right? They can figure it out and navigate whether. Now, some of my students said, look, my associate's degree, the skills that I've gotten from here, I feel confident to go back into the workforce. I don't necessarily want to do a 4-year college experience, but you know what? I now want to go straight into a particular career. And some of those jobs they're looking for don't really require a 4-year degree requirement, but they want to go into different types of avenues. But they are well read, they can write, they are critical thinkers, and they were great to have professors like me be a reference on their resume. Agency. But some of these high school kids that are thinking about whether or not they want to do whatever, college is not even an option for them. And it's not even because they have a different career path. It's because simply they do not have the means education-wise, the skills education-wise to even be able to go to college. It's not even an option for them at all. So when people say college is for everybody, you're right. College is for everybody, but is college for anybody in those types of environments? Just some food for thoughts. So I say all that to say I'm ready to now move into hot topics. The Trump tariffs are here, right? There's been a lot going on with Trump tariffs. We're seeing a lot happening with, the price of American goods. I don't know if y'all been paying attention with China, but China has raised tariffs on American goods from 125%, which is an increase from 84%. Now they're 125% raised. This is the third time China has already retaliated against us in this escalating trade war. Like, this is a trade war. Trump has put out a war amongst the trades and not the trade. Well, y'all know. It's a trade war. No, I'm joking. For those who know what I mean, inside joke. But that would be interesting, a trade war, the war amongst the trade. But we're not talking about that kind of trade. We're talking about finances, the economy, right? Stock markets. Let's be mature. So this is a big damn deal. This is a pretty big damn deal. And what's happening here is that China is clapping back, right? China's clapping back. We're seeing the stock markets crash. We're seeing a lot of economic instability. Now, Trump has made, a lot of media, because y'all petty, was all like, well, what does this mean for our cell phones? Let me tell y'all something. Y'all shouldn't be trading cell phones out every year anyway. It's not good for the environment. It's also not good for social justice. I've told y'all about them little iPhones that y'all keep buying every year, and the minerals and what we seen, what's happening in a lot of, impoverished, conflict-stricken countries in Africa. We look about the minerals that they use to make these phones. These little iPhones, y'all feel like y'all need every damn year, and how they keep raising the cost. Well, this is impacting a lot of other countries. And it feels as though Trump has put some type of 90-day, moratorium or something to close down raising some crazy rates. But he's really still focusing on China, because this is really about China at the end of the day. He's really going hard against China. And he's got a lot of smoke for China, but it's interesting how he kind of skates around Russia. But, I digress. There's a lot of hypocrisy. I see a lot of hypocrisy. And I just want people to really begin to wake up and really begin to think critically about the stuff that we're seeing. For real, for real. We need to really wake up and be thinking critically about the things that we're seeing with the economy. And people are. Listen, Wall Street bankers and big dogs are giving Trump that heat. Even the Wall Street Journal is not really feeling what Trump doing. There's a time where I've seen Republicans, and there are still Republicans, trying to act like, we can bite the bullet, we could do whatever. Now, you see former President Barack Obama has come out and has said if he did any of this stuff, the Republicans go after him, which proves the point I've been making about the double standards, that there is still a role that racism plays in this dynamic, right? That racism plays in this dynamic of, even though the economy's going down, everybody's still trying to hold Trump down. Now, let's be very clear. His most ardent supporters, they're not necessarily, right? Some of these, let me be clear. There's two types of mega supporters. There's the ultra wealthy media class that are riding with Trump no matter what, even though some of them behind the scenes are talking shit. But these rural, deep red, working class voters, they're getting hit hard. And they feel some type of way about this. And they have been speaking publicly about how they felt bamboozled. I could laugh and say, oh, well, but we're all being fucked by these decisions. Whether you was informed and you knew it wasn't going to work. Look, the 92%, okay, we knew better. A lot of us knew what was going on, but we was not in a position to fight in the same ways that white voters did. This is white voters, okay? They keep trying to say black voters, Latino voters. It ain't enough of us to move that needle. Stop bringing us into this. Stop it. Cut it out. White voters made this decision. White voters pushed it. Because let me tell you right now, and I want to keep saying this. Everyone wants to say, oh, well, there was some increase amongst black voters. Who gives a fuck? He did not have the majority of black voters. He might have had a couple, but like y'all act like black people have to be a monolith in the electoral pool. And even if we were, that may have not made the difference. And why do we have to be 100% perfect when it would have taken, I don't know, 5% or 10% of white men, if they would have voted the right way, this election would have changed. So stop acting like this, oh, he made an increase with black voters and Latino voters than last time. Well, if you're starting very low, when you get a little bit, okay, sure. Some of them do. There's always going to be a lid for every trash can, y'all. It does not apply. And so when everybody makes these arguments, I hear the media always want to keep saying, Trump made these inroads with black voters and Latino voters. Can you all be very clear of where he started and where he went? Because even if there was an increase or a tick, at the larger scheme of things, that was not what gave him the victory. Because with or without that increase, let's keep it 100, Trump would have still won because of the white vote. Let's talk about white women and how they showed up in a certain number that gave him it. And then they talk about the Gen Z, like, oh, he won over young voters. White young voters. Like, stop putting everybody in this bucket. White young voters in masses voted for Trump. So we just gotta contextualize a lot more. We just cannot keep doing these broad generalizations of like, oh, there was this massive exodus. Like, stop it. Like, stop it. Like, cut it out. And also be fair about the numbers, right? So I always tell people this example about trans athletes. There's always these arguments of there's this increase of trans athletes in the NCAA. There's going to be this problem with sports and fairity in sports, and we got entertainment, y'all. There are 500,000 athletes across the NCAA, across the country, in different fields of sports. Do you all know how many trans athletes are in the NCAA? 500,000. What's the percentage number, right? Okay, 1% would be 5,000. That's 1%. What if I told you it was 1% of that 1% of that 1% of that 1%? You say, what the fuck are you talking about? 0.0001%? Y'all, there are less than 10 transgender athletes in the NCAA. So when they say there's a rise of trans athletes, baby, out of 500,000, we're talking less than 10 athletes. Scared now? Worried about this whole made up war about unfairness in sports? Where are they? Where are these college trans athletes that you all are so worried about? Because y'all keep talking about Leah Thomas, who been graduated. We're talking about one person in a league, in an entire network of thousands upon thousands. There are not hundreds of trans players. There's not even dozens. Hell, there's not even a dozen trans athletes. So when we talk about these numbers, contextualize it like that, and then you realize, oh, I've been bamboozled. So then you'd be like, well, why are Republicans consistently talking about this trans issue? Because they want to distract you from the numbers. Because they just want to tap into your inner transphobia. Like the transphobia of it alone, this rationale would scare anybody. But like really, they pose no threat to sports at all. Yeah. So go run tell that. So moving along, the GOP budget has gotten passed. That budget that everyone was debating about, the one that people thought was dead underwater, there was lots of compromises made to be able to ensure and get people to, you know, get folks excited, right? They made some compromises. There was some issues around entitlements. There's been some talks about a lot of the chitter chat about entitlements, about Social Security. Elon Musk is obsessed with Social Security, even though it seems like his time in the White House is about to fade out. Thank God. But there's been a lot of chatter and chit chat about the optics around these particular races, the politics, all that jazz. I'm here to tell y'all that essentially, yeah, okay, China. Yeah, we're focused on this, on all this stuff with the stock market. Congress has the ability to put a clamp on this. If the Republicans felt some way about the economy, they could put some restrictions on what the president's power can do if they had the balls to. They don't. Everyone's like, oh, the courts, what can the courts do? I still have faith that the courts can do some things, but in this situation, when we're looking at the deportation, the back and forth between the Supreme Court and this process around habeas corpus, which is basically that all these individuals, yeah, you can deport them, but they deserve a trial on domestic American soil. Trump's playing a dangerous game with the Supreme Court. We see how this plays out. But I say all this to say that the midterms is coming up next year. And as much as everyone's talking about Bernie Sanders and, AOC, they've been going out to these massive crowds. Bernie was at Coachella. AOC had a big old huge crowd of 1,000 people in LA. I wasn't really impressed about that because I'm like, it's LA. I want to see Bernie do that in Michigan. Like, get a crowd out in Michigan. Bring out a big crowd in Michigan and get people to show up, right? There's a lot more that can be done, for sure. But I say all this to say that I don't think that Democrats will be the reason why they win the midterms next year. They're going to take back the House, I believe. I do believe they're going to take back the House. But to be clear, at the rate at which the Democrats have been very mediocre in messaging and responding, with the exception of AOC and Bernie, I just don't think that will be the reason. Trump is going to suck so bad. This administration has been sucking so bad and been doing such a bad job. So many jobs have been lost. So many people have been impacted negatively by this. That people's frustrations, just like the alleged frustration they had with Biden and Harris and all that, if the economy was the reason. See, this is the gag for me. If y'all really believed it was the economy and that it was the price of eggs, Trump's been sucking on all this stuff with the economy. Then for all purposes and intent, like, Biden had the economy on some level of track. Like, unemployment was getting better. A lot of stuff was getting better before Biden exited. Well, if things have gotten exponentially worse right now, we see the fear that recession, the rate of a recession that can potentially happen is increased over the past week. And also a lot of awkward, what feels like insider trading, right? Trump telling people it's a good time for you all to invest and then turn around and then reduces some of the tariffs threats. It's like, this feels like insider trading right now. What are we doing? What are we doing joking around about, you're playing with the economy in such a way. I'm not feeling that. Like, how are you dropping off these hints and doing these types of things? Like, get out of here. Get out of here with that. So there's a lot of, criticism and critique around that. And it's very telling. It's very telling. So yeah, I really think that the Democrats are going to fail upward in this regard. They're going to benefit from how crappy the Republicans are. And honestly, that might be a strategy, right? There's this narrative of play dead strategy, which I think is stupid, but it is one strategy, right? We just don't do anything really. We just kind of let it happen. We're going to talk about the let them theory. which is why, that I just want to be clear. I think a lot of people have been misunderstanding what that is, and we're going to talk about that later in this podcast. But this idea of just letting people do what they want to do and letting it play out and letting people see for themselves, right? There's some wisdom there. And so in many ways, I honestly feel like if Democrats don't have the solution, if they're not going to have the courage, just shut up and go away. Which in some ways I think they are doing. But the problem is that when these Democrats get reelected, a lot of them win these seats. We as voters are going to expect something from them. And then what are we going to expect? Because they technically didn't promise anything, and they're not really going to promise anything. So it's almost like there's a free fall of like, Republicans are going to suck so bad, we're going to vote for Democrats anyway. Because we vote for Democrats, they're going to calm some things down, but then we're going to want them to do other things other than calm the economy down, and they're not going to provide that. And then we got to see what happens, right? So it's just like, unfortunately, I don't want it to get like that, where the Trump administration does so much damage economically that it puts Democrats back in a repair mode to build back better. And then when things get better, people want to get greedy and go to Republicans again, like they did. Because that's what they did with the whole pandemic, right? Trump did so much dumb shit in general with his previous administration, his first term, that Biden spent a great deal of his time trying to clean shit up. And people wanted him to implement new ideas and new things. But in some ways, he was trying to get this country back together. And while progress was taking incremental steps, people got impatient and began to really get frustrated. And then some people made reckless decisions. You all handed a good economy to a egomaniac named Trump that then yielded that to his own expense. And now look at where we are. So I'm not crazy about it. Stay woke. Now, you've been hearing from the streets that it appears that Kamala Harris, former Vice President Kamala Harris, has an interest in potentially running for California governor. This is no surprise to a lot of us. I think a lot of people were saying she was going to weigh in whether she should run for re-election for, give president a shot, or should she, consider some other options. Well, it appears to us that it looks like she's looking for California governor. You all might be surprised by my reaction, but I'm okay with that. Why not? We could use some more black governors. And I don't think Kamala should just go away. But, trying to go for president may not be the ideal situation. But governor, why not? We should have Kamala somewhere in a bully pulpit being able to talk her shit. And it would be nice for her to be the California governor, get elected, and then show up to the DNC in 2028 and be able to champion the next nominee. But be in a position of power where she still is influential. Now, some people might say it feels a little bit like a backwardness because, her career is very interesting. She was an AG in California, and then she became a senator, a U.S. senator. Then she became the vice president. To go to governor puts her back in a state versus putting her back on a national stage. But to be honest, there's no further. She doesn't need to go to Congress. So she's been a senator already. It doesn't make any sense for her to go back to the Senate, which is backwards, right? But then she shouldn't go back to, vice president already happened. So governor might feel like it's financially, it could be arguably a demotion. But in this current state, I feel like it is a power play that is beneficial for the party's overall, sustainability. So I think with the times that we're in now, putting her there in the governor's mansion in California makes sense because she can then leverage protections for California. She could also set a standard because the thing is, look at Newsom. Gavin Newsom is a big disappointment. I don't think he's up for re-election. I think he's going to be done after this. But Gavin Newsom is a big disappointment. And the way that he's trying to put himself into the purple and get a little reddish with some of his views lately and his antics, we need a true blue Democrat to be back over there. So she could win. I could definitely see her winning. I like the idea. Yeah. So, local politics has been very interesting. First and foremost, um, deepest thoughts and prayers to the Shapiro family. As you all might know by now, there was a very concerning arsonist that came overnight on Sunday, early 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. The Shapiro's family had to evacuate the official Harrisburg residence. This is the governor's mansion. They had to exit that residence in Harrisburg after someone tried to set um, they caused a significant amount of damage apparently to the governor's mansion, and his wife was there. The authorities helped evacuate the family. He is a father of four. He has four children. He has two sons and two daughters. Two of his children, one of his sons and daughters, are legal adults, and then his other two are minors. We don't know if the adult children were inside the home, but we know that Shapiro and his wife were. It's concerning. Authorities were called, but basically there are photos of a fire, but there was an attempt to potentially kill the governor, and that is unfortunate and terrible. And look, people can disagree on politics all day, but there is no place for hate. There is no place for violence or any of that kind of stuff, especially for elected officials, who, are not preaching or encouraging violence of any sort. So, thoughts and prayers go to his family. Now, there is, for those who are bounty hunters and want to look for this, well, let me not say bounty hunters, but for those who want to figure out information, state police have described that they're probing into the incident with a multi-agency investigation, and they're offering a $10,000 reward for any information that can help. $10,000. That is $1,000, y'all. Get y'all that stack. Okay? The State Department and state police is looking for it. So if you know anybody who could have done it, would have been irresponsible, they are giving $10,000. Okay? There is capitalism and crime prevention. Get that money. Okay? They need to find out who this person is. The police are on the way looking for who this arsonist is. They will find him because he is the governor, y'all. So whoever thought they could do this and get away with it, they're going to find out who it is. And Governor Shapiro was a former attorney general for this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So he is all for that, okay? Now, I think he's against the death penalty, but listen, he is Mr. Law Enforcement, baby. They gonna find out who this arsonist is, and justice will be served. But on a serious note, again, this is very unfortunate, and I just hope that his family is in, good spirits, and that, this does not happen, and that justice is served, and people get to the bottom of it. So I just want to put that out there, because that is a very unfortunate situation, and it's just like, what are we doing? Like, look, you don't agree with him, protest him. You don't agree with him, call that out. All of that is fine, right? But we use words, not our hands, okay? And we need to call things to the carpet, and do the right thing. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot happening, for sure. So, in other news, there's been a lot going on with the Krasner campaign. As you all know, there's been a lot of backlash following his cowardly backing out of the debate. Now, if you want to get into all the tea and everything that happened with that, you can listen to the special edition episode of Ernestly Speaking, which is the previous episode that just came out last week. Listen to it. It's worth the listen. I really dive into what went down and how it all played out. Krasner it's not a good look for Krasner. And for all intents and purposes, a lot of people are putting out statements. Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists. If you listen to this episode on Monday, there is going to be a lot of public responses to that behavior, to a lot of things. And so Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, the executive board, I'm the proud president, but my board spoke out as well. They called this to the carpet with a statement. And I'm going to read this statement that is out. You're the first to hear it if you listen to this episode very, very early. But this statement from the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists. The Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, the nation's first association for black journalists, regretfully confirms the cancellation of our Philadelphia District Attorney Candidates Forum scheduled for April 24th, 2025, due to a personal dispute on the sole behalf of the Democratic incumbent District Attorney Larry Krasner. Plans for this event have been underway for more than a year, including consultations with both campaigns as soon as they declared candidacy earlier this year. Given the immense community interest in this primary election, PABJ secured an unprecedented level of access for this event that included live broadcasting on television, radio, and digital platforms, along with a sponsored public venue in Central City, thanks to a committed coalition of partners. From the start, Larry Krasner and his campaign team worked to misdirect, derail, and suppress participation in this forum, both with PABJ and our journalistic partners. In the organization's 2 decades of hosting electoral candidate forums, PABJ has never had a candidate misbehave in such a blatant and unprofessional manner. For any candidate to attempt to manipulate the public's opportunity to be informed by a fair and researched debate is tyrannical at best, undemocratic at worst. For there to no longer be a televised debate during this crucial election is a major disservice and loss to voters and marginalized communities. PABJ's executive board decries this affront to our organization, our partners, and the city's black community. Quote, when an elected official chooses to avoid accountability from the free press, especially media platforms curated by local black journalists, a major red flag presents itself, says PABJ President Ernest Owens, myself. Quote, Larry Krasner isn't above the law or approach, and should actually model the democratic values that his campaign claims to stand for. PABJ remains empowered and grateful for our membership, sponsors, and partners in this now canceled event, which includes CBS News Philadelphia, WRD Radio, Linfest Institute for Journalism, and the Museum of the American Revolution. We would also like to acknowledge Judge Pat Dugan's campaign for their willingness to participate and for providing full transparency throughout this belabored process. PABJ remains unbowed in our commitment to continuing to produce candidate forums and other such advocacy on behalf of the Black community in the future. Signed, the PABJ Executive Board, which names all of our members, including myself, Ashley Johnson, who is our Vice President of Broadcast, Monique Curry-Mims, who's our Vice President of Print, Manny Smith, who's our Vice President of Digital, Tahit Chappelle, who's our Parliamentarian, Kamari Ellis, who's our Treasurer, Teresa Spencer, who's our Secretary, and Charlene Horn, who is our at-large board member. So that is our statement that we have sent out to the press and to the public at large. And, we stand by this, by all means. And this is a very important moment. And a lot of people, are supporting us with this. They recognize it. Even people who like Krasner, personally and politically, right? They're like, look, this ain't it. This ain't it, buddy. This ain't it. Like you running from journalists. You afraid to hold yourself accountable. You don't want to deal with, these types of voices, It's very telling. And to look, I've been covering elections my entire career, and for somebody to just back out of a forum simply because they don't want to hold themselves accountable, it's just very telling. So, I just wanted to provide that education. And, here we go. So, yeah, good luck. So in other news with that campaign, some of the tea that's been being spilled is that, maybe some of you don't know, is that apparently Pat Dugan's campaign is out fundraising Krasner, which is very, interesting. They're out fundraising Krasner's campaign. they have more money. They have a substantial amount of more money than what Krasner currently has. Now, at the end of the day, as I told you all before, it is very likely that Krasner will stay reelected just on the nature of what's going on. But it is important for folks to know this very important election cycle that we're dealing with. So I wanted to provide that information and news to you all. You all have that context. But yeah, endorsements, there are several major wards, even open wards, that are not endorsing Krasner or not joining in the conversation. And that speaks volumes to people. That speaks volumes. And a lot of people don't put the time, energy, and efforts to educate themselves on what's happening in our communities. And a lot of times this kind of stuff goes under the radar. And a lot of times this isn't, people should just know what it means to have an election of this magnitude, and what that looks like, and what that means, and how people can, share their voices and give their perspectives. Yeah, it's so much to unpack. But this is the stuff that we need to talk about. It's the stuff that it would have been a question that I would have asked Krasner about his campaign. But when you're dodging the journalists, when you're dodging, people in these positions, you want to cherry pick who you want to interview you. And I want to be clear, there's no shade to Cherry Gregg, right? She was supposed to be the moderator for the WHRY. But like I said before, and like I will emphasize, that everybody has different talents and skills. Certain people bring certain talents to the forefront, and there is just a different level of expectations and skill set that can you do. So just because you can do something don't mean that you're the best at it. And the range, do you have the range to do it and be considered fair? Are you going to ask soft questions? Are you going to, I've done this, right? What's important about a good debate is the level of unpredictability, the level of research, the level of thoroughness, that if you're trying to play it safe, then this is not the space. Because if you recognize how crucial, and I think, and this is not, again, a personal dig at her or anybody, but just speaking in general, I'm seeing a lot of journalists in this industry, especially Black journalists in Philadelphia, play it safe. And what I mean by playing it safe is they're not pushing the envelope. They're not digging deep. They're not investigating. They're not thinking critically. They're just letting people say whatever they want and not push back, or not respectfully challenge what is being said. A lot of times it's just asking questions, letting people rant and say whatever they're going to say. Just stick with the script. You have a script of questions. You don't deviate from the script because you don't recognize it. You just want to stay focused. And it's just so performative. Like, people are performing what they think a reporter is rather than actually be a reporter. Like, people are performing what it looks like. Like, they want to have a serious face. They make these very, performative shocks and wows. And it's almost like they're acting. And it's like, this is not it. Like, that's not what this is. And I think we're missing a level of authenticity and sincerity. And I don't know if people either just suck at their job or they're being fake. And again, I'm not making a personal jab at any particular person. Okay, let me be very clear about that. But I've just noticed when I listen to certain interviews, when I'm watching certain programs, there is just a level of basicness and remedialness in the way in which we're interviewing politicians, the way that we're talking to people in authority of power. I'm not saying be mean. I'm not saying, you got to be mean. Yeah. But also, I'm not saying that you need to also be soft. And what I mean by that is that when you're talking to a powerful elected official that has influence, like a district attorney, like someone like Krasner, people like Krasner, because I've studied him, I've interviewed him before, I know how they work, right? They're going to overtalk you. They're going to talk long. They're going to say a bunch of nothing. And it's your responsibility to take a pause and say, okay, I hear what you're saying, but let me circle back. Like when I interview Sherelle Parker, right? Mayor Sherelle Parker, I can tell certain people don't know how to interview her. One thing about Sherelle Parker is she's going to talk. She can talk, and she can talk well. But one thing about her is she knows how to deviate off topic. She knows how to pivot. And if you're a good reporter, you could stop her and say, that's great. That's a good point. But let me get back to my question because you didn't seem to answer that. I want to be very clear. This is a yes or no. They don't know how to land. They don't know how to hammer. There's an art to this. And I don't know, because some of these people walk around here flexing about how they got these master's degrees from journalism institutions like Columbia and Medill from Northwestern and Syracuse and Temple and all this. They talk about all this, but I'm like, do y'all really, do y'all understand that these very formulaic teaching skills are not best practices? They're basically recommendations, but what do you do in a situation where someone's bullshitting you in real time? Yes, let me stop you right there because we need to move on. How do we pivot? How do we move the conversation? How do we get back to the topic? How do we address in real time the question was not answered respectfully to move on? I just see a lot of my fellow peers in this industry not do that. They don't do that. And I feel like that's a problem. Because then when you don't do that, it's people like you that make it harder for journalists like me. Because then what they do is they like to compare and weaponize. Oh, Ernest is such a mean journalist. I'm sorry. What does that mean, being mean? What, we friends? We homies? I didn't know I was supposed to sit down and pull up a chair and give you tea. Oh, I want to go to this person because I know they're gonna be nice to me. And I'm like, when I'm asking you questions, I'm not being mean or nice. I'm just asking you a question. And let me be very clear, I'm not rude because I'm never going to be disrespectful. Like, I know what it means to be disrespectful as an interviewer. When I've interviewed any elected officials, I've never came at them disrespectful. Now, if they decided to go left, I'm going to meet them left and then steer them right. But I'm not coming into a situation where I'm coming at any person with the intention to be mean or to be shady, to be disrespectful. I interview them if I feel like they're wasting my time, if I feel like they're lying. In the interview, in that portion, there can be some frustration, right? Because I am a human. But the task I'm about is to get answers so that the public can be informed. My job in that role is to get you all the information. If a person is lying to me, if a person is talking in circles and wasting my time, they're wasting your time. They're wasting the public's time. And when those interviews are over, you know what you all do? You get in the comments and say, so that was a waste of time. And so I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. So there's a lot of people in power who don't want me to interview them, not because I am not, quote unquote, nice. It's because I will not let them waste my time. I will not let them lie to me in my face. I will not let them insult my intelligence. And I will not let them play with me and play with my community. So therefore, if you're not going to do that, then don't come. And so I guess that was what it was with Larry Krasner. I think Larry Krasner realized I cannot fuck around with Ernest because I do not want to find out. So therefore, we're not doing this debate because we're not going to be able to lie. We're not going to be able to play in his face. He's not going to let that go down with these other journalists. And so as a result, we're not going to do it. Fine, Larry. Fine, Mr. Krasner. If you don't want to have a real honest conversation, then don't. Don't call me biased. Don't call me any of those things. I am fair. And you don't want anyone to kiss your ass because every interview this man has done, people have softballed him. And they softball him because they want access to him. And so we talk about adversarial journalism and access journalism, right? Adversarial journalism is when a journalist like myself has to find another means to the ends to get the information because the person who is in power will not easily make it accessible to me. So that's how y'all get the receipts y'all get. That's how y'all get the tea y'all get. Because there are times when elected officials will lie and hide information or mislead. And so while some of my fellow peers will read a press release and publish the lie and just read what the police report says and carry the lie, I will take a step back and say, you know what? I don't believe this, and I'm going to find out the truth. So that requires me to actually go out and find out the information and then bring the receipts and show it. They will tell me, oh, you're not being a good journalist because you didn't publish what we said. No, I didn't publish your lie. No, I did not, because I found the actual truth. No, I was not going to ask you for a comment for something I had the factual information to. Yes, I will ask you for a comment after the story, or I will follow up with you, but I will not give you the liberty to try to incriminate, retaliate, and shut my story down before I publish it. You don't know how many times, y'all, where I have worked on a big story, and when I asked them for a comment on a story, now let me be very clear. If they're being alleged of a crime, I do have to go and I do have to ask them for comment. I will never not let a fallacious criminal allegation be said. But if I have factual information, footage or something of that nature, and it is actual factual and it was released to the public, let me be very clear. That video of Krasner with Stephen Jones, who is a convicted child pedophile and a disgraced former ward leader of the 52nd Ward, that was footage that was shared on social media that was already out by somebody's account. I saw that footage. That footage was in a public setting. I took that footage, I publicized it, and amplified it to the public. Krasner was caught slipping, I guess you could say. But I simply did that. I didn't have to call Krasner and say, I could have, but I didn't have to. I didn't have to say, Krasner, can you explain this? Because let me tell you what people in power have done. I didn't say Krasner do this, but let me tell you what they do. They will find out you're working on a story. They will call every single source and say, don't give comment, deny, deny, deny. Don't answer that phone. Ernest is going to call you. Don't answer the phone. I can't tell you how many people, if I was working with a source of a major story, this is a couple years ago, where an individual was being accused of sexual harassment. Okay, I cannot name the names, but I will tell you this. This person was accused of sexual harassment. This person, this victim, had came to me, told me everything on record. All the information was there. This individual who was accused pretty much got a whiff that a story was being done. This person found out where this accuser worked, called that person's supervisor, who they were in work with, there was some connections, and basically threatened that if this person does this thing, we're going to pull out from sponsoring this event, which basically would have cost this person their job. So as a result of that, this person pulled out of the story, which meant I had no story. The story got killed. I could not report the story because this source came forward, this victim did, and because they were scared that they could lose their job and their livelihood, I had to respect that as a journalist. I had to have ethics and realize, oh my goodness, I can't violate this person, this source. And also, without their cooperation, I had no backing of the story because they were the major source. This person accused, they provided it. All that was no longer allowed to be fair game, and therefore the story died. This person now continues to operate in a space where they sexually harass other people, and I cannot do anything without anyone coming forward. Now, could I publicly say this person is a sexual abuser? Yes. But you know what? I can get sued because I will have to provide evidence of that. And every source, every person, this is now off the record. I cannot showcase, I cannot say their information. I cannot. And these people, because of fear of retaliation, they could deny it. So I'm fucked. So when you all wonder why certain stories do not come out, why certain people who are criminals or whatever can't come out, understand that unless you have the courage to speak it out, a journalist cannot just simply go out and accuse a person without any facts or findings. If you're a victim, you can say something, you can tell your story, you can speak your truth because that's your truth. But as a journalist, your experience is not my experience without your agency and your consent. And so there are people who have told me, why won't you just air this person, expose this person? I cannot publicly do that because that will criminalize myself. That will then shut me down. That can also lead to lawsuits for the publication if the publication ran it, and that ends everything. So what I tell people is it takes community, it takes courage, it takes serious whistleblowing. And if you're not going to do that, you cannot expect journalists to put their entire bodies, livelihoods on the line and also put their reputations on the line for something that we cannot verify by fact and by truth. So when people say to me, oh, why you didn't call that person? Because that person, if I know them to know them who they are, has the power to. When Larry Krasner found out that I was a moderator, he actively went out his way to try to shut this damn panel down. And he did. He succeeded. I could have not told. Maybe we would have not known. But the integrity of the media partners was that, no, we're not going to lie. I don't need to lie. Like, we have integrity. We're not going to do no pop-up surprise and go, oh, this. And then people say, well, what if you dropped out and not moderate, but let somebody else moderate it? With all due respect, we had several other panelists participating. Why should I, as an informed Black journalist that can do this, why do I concede to that man's power? If and my media partners never did, they never said, Ernest, drop out, don't do it. They stood 10 toes down. If they didn't even, first of all, Krasner's campaign didn't even ask us to do that. But hypothetically, if they did, that is us conceding to power. If you tell one, and that's also racist, right? Like I know Jeff Cole asks tough questions, right? He's a white investigative journalist and reporter at Fox 29. You got all these white journalists. Why does the Black journalist have to be the sacrificial lamb? Why does the Black journalist have to be the one that has to sit down? Why does he have to hold the L? Why does he have to be the bigger person? Why does he have to be the one to be silenced, to concede? Because that's fueling the actual double narrative. Because if they got away with that, then that means that I can always be iced out. We don't have to talk to Ernest. We'll just get another person to do Ernest's job. At the end of the day, it's all cowardice because it's trying to avoid truth and accountability. And this is a man who at one point in time owned the Tesla, but tried to sue Elon Musk. A publicity stunt that collapsed. That lawsuit didn't go nowhere, by the way. It didn't go anywhere, by the way. Just to put that in context. But this is the type of cowardice that we're dealing with. But in other news, because Krasner will have to deal with that, right? Mayor Parker has acquiesced. Mayor Parker is keeping the Zero Fare pilot program with SEPTA. You know, last week we talked about this on the podcast about how the Zero Fare plan was going to potentially get eliminated in this new budget for the 2026 fiscal year. Well, with a lot of public pressure, that coming from former Mayor Jim King, look, he did something that I can admire. Other advocates, city council members like, city council member at large, Nicholas O'Rourke, and others from Working Families Party that had fought and argued in favor of keeping the Zero Fare plan for lower income Philadelphians who need to get to work, this program will still be in place. And so that is some good news. Some news that is not so good, but also shaky, is that SEPTA has unveiled a budget proposal. They did this last week, mid last week, basically saying that there's going to be a reduction to nearly half of their services, even though fare increases are going to be more. So they're going to raise the fares, but they're going to reduce the services. And this is up to the governor to have to step in. Governor Shapiro and the state has to save SEPTA, because if they don't, it's going to collapse. And there are many city council members and others that are speaking out to demand that we keep SEPTA, because public transportation, even if you're in a city, and some of us don't ride SEPTA, like myself and others, that does not mean that you just simply turn your back and say, no, I can't do this. No, we can find a way we can pivot. No, you cannot pivot, It can't happen. Something's got to give. And so there's a lot on the table with some of these conversations. And we gotta change the narrative, and we gotta move the needle forward. But there's a lot of conversations happening right now with people who are pushing back, demanding accountability, asking people what they're going to do, how they're going to speak truth to power. Can't do that without public transportation. I don't know a world where we could be able to have this level I mean, this is what I mean by the worker economy. How do you not provide resources to a community like this, an underserved community? How do you provide resources? How do you plan to do that, right? And not have, anything. Nothing. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing that we can provide. There's nothing that, no public transportation. Yeah. That's that's tough. That's tough. And so I'm just hoping that people really really get out here, get creative, and really, think strategically about this. Because if not, it's only going to get worse for this economy. So, yeah, we got to keep SEPTA. Totally. So this week's Ask Ernest. I've been thinking about this because a lot of people have been talking about the let them theory. This book by a motivational speaker named Mel Robbins. It was on the New York Times bestsellers list. It came out last year. And a lot of people wanted to ask me what I thought about it because they've been seeing the stuff I've been, going through with different institutions and all this. And pretty much a let them theory is this idea that when you, quote unquote, let them do whatever it is they want to do, it creates more control and emotional peace for you and a better relationship with the people in your life, right? That's the let them theory, essentially, that when you let them do. So whatever they do, let them talk, let them whatever, that when you let people do what they do and you give them this agency to do it, that it creates more control and emotional peace for you as a person. Because a lot of times people want to control the environment, the atmosphere, they want to control outcomes. And so in so many ways, letting it happen, letting people do what they do, it'll freeze you in a way. That let people reveal themselves, let things play the way they're going to play. One could argue that's what the Democratic Party is doing, right? A lot of people think or say, well, what do you think about this theory, Ernest? Like, how do you feel about it? Whatever. I read the book, and I think the problem is that no one's actually reading this book. They're just looking at, graphics on Instagram and people just saying this term, and it sounds cute and catchy, and everybody want to say it. There is a second part in that book that puts the restraints on what that actually means, that let them. And what I think the problem is that the let them theory is actually more measured, more nuanced in the way that people are actually saying it, because they like the word let them. And these are very catchy phrases, right? Let them talk shit. Let them whatever. Just let them and whatever. But to be honest with you, no shade to a lot of y'all was already letting them. Y'all didn't have a spine. You was letting people do shit. You didn't have no courage. You didn't have a fucking backbone. Let me be clear what let them really means and what this really means and how I apply it, right? Because a lot of you all don't actually understand what the let them theory is. And let me also tell you that you're celebrating half of that theory because it's already shit you was already doing. So a lot of people been sharing these little graphics of let them talk, let them criticize you, let them whatever. Just do you. You already was doing that shit. And let me tell you what you all were doing. You were letting them do these things, right? When you were letting him cheat and letting him lie, when you letting your friends get away with bullshit, when you letting your supervisor do what they want and talk all over you, you was letting them do that shit, right? And then you broke down. And then you crashed out. And then you blew up because you let them do it for so long that you got fucking fed up. And then you had a meltdown. That's what happens when you do half of what the let them theory is. The let them theory actually talks about clarity, right? That it is not about letting anybody do whatever they want. It's understanding and being clear and transparent that in the let them of it all, you make it clear to them, you can do these things, but here's what the fuck I am going to do. See, this is the part of the is where you got me fucked up part that y'all don't want to do because y'all don't have the courage, a lot of y'all, when y'all talk about, most people are passive aggressive as fuck, very cowardly, very spineless. Most people actually don't like confrontation. So I can see how the let them theory, initially the way that you all have misread it, will make you feel good. Yeah, I'm going to let the haters talk. I don't care. Let them. Baby, that's not what that meant, okay? Let me be clear what it really means, okay? And let me tell you, because real people like me been letting people let them, right? See, in the Black queer community, there's a term we use called pay it, right? Pay it. That's what we say, right? Pay it. Marsha P. Cooper, they would say pay it, baby, pay it. Right? Let me tell you something what pay it means, right? Pay it means measure and pick your battles, okay? It means there's some things that's worthy of my intervention and some things I'm just going to let it slide because it ain't worth it, okay? When we talk about it, that's the interesting core of what let them really means. That it really means let people do what they do, but be very clear around your boundaries and what you will accept, right? So, okay, in certain situations, when people critique or when you see things going a certain way you don't like, right? Okay, take a step back. Is this a situation that, okay, I don't like that this person is going to do this. Does this really detrimentally hurt me? Is this really going to fucking matter? Or is it just my ego? Or am I doing this thing where I know I have people around me in my network that are fake and I keep trying to intervene and change the course? I keep trying to stop this from happening. And so I don't want them to do the thing I think they're going to do because it's going to reveal it to me and it's going to make me uncomfortable, right? Basically, stop being a control freak, right? Stop trying to control everybody's actions or reactions to things that just hurt your ego or just hurt your feelings in a particular type of way, right? But let me be very clear that is very different from sitting back and letting people straight up disrespect you and directly harm you in your livelihood, right? That there are two types of harms, right? There's harms to the ego, right? And harms to your actual life. And what y'all don't get is that a lot of times when there are people that might say some shit, right? I'll give you an example. There's somebody who I don't fuck with. We ain't even gonna name names. I'm not even gonna get in the platform space. But they didn't got on somebody's irrelevant ass podcast and talk some shit. Not gonna name the podcast, not even gonna get into the details. But they got on the podcast, talk some shit about me and some people I know. Doesn't even fucking matter. Don't ask me who, where, what, when, because it don't fucking matter. I'm gonna fucking pay it. And that is the let them. Because I'm gonna let you talk your shit, baby, because it's a flop, it's a dumb bun. What you gotta say about me don't have no weight, don't matter, don't mean nothing, don't carry no fucking weight, it don't mean shit. Let them talk the shit, baby, because they're irrelevant, they're not my peer, they're not my level, it doesn't fucking matter. Let them, right? Because it doesn't hold no weight. But what if I said that the particular person was lying to a business partner I had, and that could let me lose my contract? Baby, that is a situation where you don't pay it. That is a situation where you don't let them. You don't let them hurt you, harm you. You don't let them stop your bag. You don't let them get you fired. You don't let them, if somebody do some shit like that, oh no, baby, I'm gonna let them hands talk. No, I'm joking. Sometimes, right? If you put your hands on me, let them hit you. No, baby, I'm not gonna let you hit me. Let them scam you. Oh no, I'm not about to let you scam me. Let them lie to you. No, baby, I'm not gonna let you lie to me. So let's be very clear. Let them theories about creating a healthy space of boundaries. That you can't dictate everybody's reactions and responses, but you can find that happy medium. And so what this really means is that you need to just choose your battles. What situations require you to respond and react and what don't? And I think there are some people that every single time a person says something, do something, or don't agree, or might go in a different direction, they feel like they got to get involved, they got to integrate, they got to protect their image. I've been on the let them theory for a long time. Every single person that talks shit about me, I don't give a fuck. I assess who the fuck matters. And a lot of times the people that's talking shit is plebeians that are beneath me on so many levels of the term. They are not relevant. People be coming to me sometimes, oh, did you see this? Did you see this DM? There was a situation like literally, like I said, this person that was talking shit. Child, the gag is that there's so much, oh, y'all getting me there. There was a gag where there were two people involved in this. It's one person that was hosting this podcast. that I really don't fuck with, but I'm cordial with them. They hosted this person, brought this person on to talk some shit. This person was talking about a bunch of shit. My name was name dropped in it, whatever. They was just talking shit. It was no value, no substance, just talking shit. In the interview, they were like, oh, I know they're going to get kicked out of this. I know they're going to go off and blow up and whatever. They wanted a reaction from me that was supposed to, like, blow this up. And I said, I'm tired of making these hoes famous. And so I won't give it validation. Pay it, baby. You said something great, baby. What you got to say don't matter. And I'm only using this as the example because of the fact of how the let them theory. Now, this is me being in a situation where, okay, if this mattered and I really thought it fucking deserved an actual call out on my platform, on social media, I need to name names and let y'all know, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, y'all would have known. I would have gave it some smoke. But I'm very smart and I'm very strategic about what I give energy to and what I don't. And so there are situations where I look at a person and go, you don't matter. What you said in this situation does not really hold any weight. It's not stopping any bags over here. And the only time I decide to jump in and speak out and call something out is when it actually carries the actual level of influence that actually causes detriment to people I care about, the communities I operate within, and when it does carry that weight. And that is when I decide to engage. That is when I decide to call something out. There's a lot of people that say all kind of passive aggressive shit. And I look at them and I say to myself, ciao, goodbye, girl, kaboom, boy, bye, boy, stop. Like, you know what? You'll say this today. You'll be here today. You'll be gone tomorrow. You won't matter in 3 months, 6 months, and even a year. And I can move the fuck on. Sometimes you got to know how to pay it. I know that people say it's the let them era, but honestly, it's more about pay it. Pay it. Sometimes you just pay it. And you just say, you know what, girl, girl, go ahead, child. Go, pay it. But I think some of you all have tried to use it to justify your passive aggressiveness, your Hakuna Matata mentality, your, I'm just doing a let them theory. And I'm like, child, that person is coming for you, your livelihood, your reputation, and your career. I think you need to say something because you just cannot just let them. And I think some people have used this they have misconstrued what this mean. And I'm here to tell y'all, motherfuckers are coming for your neck. Get up off your ass, stand on it, stand for business, and defend yourself. If this person's not on your level, it does not matter, it does not materially impact you, pay it. Because guess what? The only time it will matter is if you make it matter to other people. The gag for me is that when I heard about this situation, this podcast situation, it was actually a friend of mine who knew this person and followed them that heard it. But nobody in my fucking network knew anything about it. Nobody in my inner circle, nobody that fucking mattered told me about it. Nobody in my inner web even knew because they don't listen to this podcast. They don't listen to this person. They don't even know the players. They didn't know. That's the gag. The gag is no one knew. And what's even more shady, y'all, is that the podcast host in question, I saw them at an event this week and they literally saw me, not the person that was talking this shit, but the person that hosted, because I don't fuck with them either because that was fucked up. But they saw me in the event. And they saw me in real time. And I saw them and I said, hello, hi, how you doing? We had casual conversation. It was all Gucci. It was all good. There was nothing else. I didn't even know that episode came out earlier that week. And mind you, I didn't even treat them no type of way. I wasn't mean. I was nothing. You would think, they would probably in their mind thinking, oh my God, he know. Child, it was so irrelevant, I didn't even know. And the gag is I found out a couple days later, and the gag is it ain't even worth the exposure. Like I said, I'm tired of making these hoes famous. I'm not about to get you no views. I'm not about to get you no buzz. I'm not about to give you no shine. But that's cute that you let other people know. But the gag is I guess not enough people listen to your content or your podcast or your stuff to even know who you are, to even care. That's the gag. So I'm not going to let you be famous. I'm not going to let you do that. But let's be clear. When I see this person again in person, I will let them know, yo, I saw what you did. Wasn't cool about it. Take care of yourself. I'll just let that be known. I'll let them know I know, though, because I'm not going to let nobody be faking my face. But it ain't no smoke. Do what you do. Enjoy your enjoy. I won't even say 15 minutes of fame because there's no fame, but do what you do. Let the whole know I see you. I see you. That's cute. And we can keep that same non-talking energy. Because when I saw you, you didn't have the balls of the common courtesy to say, oh yeah, by the way, you didn't do that. But that's fine. That's cool. Seen it. Be well. And be best. That's how you get a bitch. That's how you let them. You let them, but did you really let them? Or would they ever let them, would you ever let them do it again? Or would they ever think to themselves to do whatever they thought they would do, they think twice? Just saying. So moving on, movies, like I said, so, y'all know that G20 came out with Viola Davis. A lot of y'all like the film. Y'all know I was up for it. I enjoyed it personally. There was a lot of good buzz around it. Sinners is coming out in theaters this upcoming weekend. I've already seen it. I'm going to tell y'all again. Y'all been hearing the good reviews, but I told y'all this movie was good. Michael B. Jordan, it is probably the best performance of his career outside of Fruitvale Station. This is probably the best performance he's done in his career. I mean, it's an incredible performance. I won't tell it, but it is worth the hype, and you all should go see it. I just want to say that again. There's also some talk about the remake of The Bodyguard. Can y'all leave this remakes alone? Can y'all leave remakes alone? I just want to be clear about that. Can y'all leave remakes alone? On behalf of the I'm Sick of Remakes Committee, look, there's been a couple of remakes that have worked, right? I did like the Bel Air remake, but that wasn't even a remake, y'all. That was like a reimagining. I like a reimagining of something. Maybe that's the better answer. But these remakes, the redundancy of these remakes are just getting tired and through. Like, I just want original content. Like, why is that so hard? Why is it so hard to get original content? Like, I don't know why we continue to struggle with getting original content for films and movies. Like, everybody keeps trying to do this. Oh, well, we're just gonna, like, at some point we gotta get original. We gotta get creative with it. And for some reason, that's not where we're at, and it's always we're gonna give us another, either it's another Marvel movie or it's something else. But yeah, it's like, can we get a little bit more creative? Can we just, I don't know, think outside the box? Can we just wake it up a bit, do something a little bit more? I just feel like there's so much more we could bring to the table, and I just feel like we just keep dropping the ball, over and over again, as they say, over and over again. We just keep dropping the ball. So I think there's opportunities. There's opportunities to progress and to see where things land. But yeah, I definitely think we need to just stop the remakes. And so they are trying to make a Bodyguard remake. That has been the talks. We don't know who the cast is, but that has been in the works, and we'll see where it plays out. Hopefully enough of us publicly outcry and trash it that it won't happen, but we'll see. Also, speaking of remakes and whatnot, I want to give y'all this little update. Keke Palmer, that interview with Jonathan Majors, I thought we were going to do a big old splash about it and talk about it. Well, I don't know if y'all know this, but it did, if you don't know this yet, but she basically took it off her platform. But I have tea. I have tea for you all. I got a chance to hear it before it got taken off. It was an exclusive for a certain number of subscribers and listeners to the podcast. It was an exclusive for certain folks to get a chance to listen to it. And there were some notes. I took some notes about what was said on the podcast. But I do have the notes. So the interview is cringy on so many different levels. So Wondery Plus subscribers got a chance to hear it before it came out, but she took it off the radar. So you can't hear this Jonathan Majors interview. Keke Palmer really did. Cancel culture works, y'all. But I do want to give y'all some notes and some brief overview on some of the stuff that went down. So Jonathan Majors basically said that his marriage feels whole. He said they did decide to elope with his mother present. They said they're going to have a larger ceremony and reception at a later date. Majors also tried to discourage Megan Good from dating him, as he had just came from the precinct. He said they had briefly met before. He said they were in the friend zone, and then she flew to him 48 hours later. Yeah, that's cringy. He said, quote, that this is Megan Good, quote unquote, held down the potential of a man regarding him. Kiki says a lot of people would consider this trauma bonding. How did you find yourself? Pretty much. Jonathan Majors said that he never heard of the term trauma bonding before, and that Megan Good had to explain it to him. Interesting. Jonathan Majors doesn't read the comments or views of what people say about Megan Good being a clutch to him. Megan Good reads the comments and she opines a lot about them. So she reads those comments. Kiki had asked him where he was coming from with the MLK comparisons. That did come up, y'all. And he basically said that every great man is held down by an even greater woman. And he said maybe he misspoke with that Coretta line. Jonathan Majors says that he sat 2 years thinking, how did he get here after his arrest? He says he needed to reach out to therapists and religious clergy. There was a lot of word salad, apparently. Kiki asked him about how he felt about that guilty verdict. He says that he is, quote unquote, in the throes of it, but had support, referring to Megan Good, his family and friends, to get him on the right track, on a new track, specifically a new track. Kiki asked him if he discussed being dropped by his manager or his agency. If he expected to be dropped by his manager or his agency. He basically said that him and Megan Good went on many road trips and discussed his heartbreak. He said he was not surprised but felt heartbreak. He said that God had a way. He mentions his daughter. I don't know if y'all know, but he got a baby. He got a daughter. He has a child. And by the way, he dispels rumors, not here, but in other spaces, that Megan Good paid for his child support and all that. He said none of that is true. Jonathan Majors' parents are not together. His dad disappeared in his life. He said he's happy he can heal through this and be a better parent for his daughter. Kiki asked him how did that, affect him. He reveals that he's a victim of child sexual abuse, and he was groomed as a child. He shared this. There was an interview he did with the Hollywood Reporter, and he talked about that there. She wasn't aware until she read a book about it. That's what Keke Palmer said. Jonathan Majors realized that he was abused after discussing it with his older sister. They both agree they disassociated in their childhoods from the situation. But there's a lot of word salad in the interview, just like the Sherry Shepherd interview that he recently did. There's a lot of word salad, and I think the interview, if it would have came out, I think the way that Keke Palmer, I don't think it would have been a good look. I think it was a smart move from her to pull the interview, because I do feel like in so many ways it just would have not worked out in his favor. I really think that there would have been a lot of interesting, it just would have just not been a lot of good vibes with that. And I also think Jonathan put his foot in his mouth so many times that it just would have not helped him on that redemption tour that he's still trying to do that's flopping as we know it. So, to music, Coachella. Coachella is here. There's a lot of things going on. Lady Gaga is slaying, by the way, with Coachella. Her performance is incredible. She was reminding the girls that she's one of the greats. I've never said that she isn't. I love that Gaga is back and she is bringing the art. She's bringing the performance. And this is a great launch since, the last time, she had... oh my goodness, the album that came out, Chromatica, that came out during the pandemic, that I did like, but also because of the pandemic, she really didn't get to take it to the next level. I like this Mayhem era. I like this album. Mr. Johnson says it's the best album of the year so far. I guess new album, I would say, of the year so far. I think, we're close to the first half of the year. I would say Mayhem has been very impressive. It's definitely album of the year frontrunner for me. Some people say Kendrick is, but I don't know. That GNX album, It's gonna get nominated. It can get nominated for album of the year, but I don't think it's album of the year material, to be honest. But it could get nominated for sure. But I definitely feel like Gaga's album Mayhem has just been consistently good, and she's just been great. Bernie Sanders came to Coachella, of course, to tell the people to go out there and in this generation save society, pretty much. But some other things, Missy Elliott came through, Glorilla, Lotto. The girls are doing their thing. Missy Elliott is still doing hot fly performances, which is awesome. Also, interesting news, there's been a lot of buzz and chatter about Chris Brown. He's celebrating the 20th anniversary of his career. And he also was at Coachella and he saw Karrueche, which, of course, Karrueche Tran is his ex girlfriend who, at one point in time, she had to get a restraining order against him. But there's been so much time in between. There was pictures of them being friendly with each other, had like a very public, friendly exchange with one another. And, people are trying to make a lot of it. Look, I'm all for these women moving on with their lives, meaning well. And that's right. They deserve that peace and space. And they're in a different place, right? But to be clear, none of this absolve him from the consistent ongoing concerns and rumors around him being abusive, and also the allegations and consistent homophobia that he's displayed over the years. I think what annoys me is when people try to cherry pick certain instances, right? Oh, well, Karrueche thinks he's good, so the world is good. Listen, if you want to fuck with Chris Brown like Chris Brown, then whatever it takes. Because even before Karrueche, a lot of y'all was still playing his music, fucking with him. Even before him and Rihanna, like, you all don't care about victims. A lot of y'all don't. Not saying you, the listener, but some of you, the society, don't care. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in trying to justify and use these little fleeting ass examples. Chris Brown's a problem. Chris Brown is arrogant, and I just don't feel like he is really deep trying to hold himself accountable to do it. So yeah, just wanted to give you all that food for thought. But whatever to him. It's the 20th anniversary of the Emancipation of Mimi, one of the greatest comeback albums of all time. Mariah Carey's The Emancipation of Mimi turned 20 years old this past weekend. I am not necessarily a lamb, but I do love me some Mariah Carey. I'm a big fan. And she's dropping a 20th anniversary edition with new songs, all these records that's going to come out in May. And talk about artistry. Like, talk about artists that really have stood the test of time. Like, that's a legend, y'all. Damn. Emancipation of Mimi is 20 years old. I mean, I was processing Confessions, but Confessions and like some of these albums, like these are, now I'm starting to feel it. I'm starting to feel it, y'all. Because these are the albums that, like, whew. I mean, Crazy in Love is going to be turning 22 years old this summer. Time is going by. B-Day is turning 20 next year. Don't get me started. Don't get me started, y'all. Don't get me started, okay? Because I'm still processing this. So, yeah, it's been quite a time. It's been quite a moment. But let's talk about the thing that we really want to talk about, okay? Let's talk about Keri Hilson. Girl, bye. Girl, bye. Let me start with this. Keri Hilson won the Breakfast Club. Oh, God. She went on the Breakfast Club. She did an interview this past week. This situation, Keri Hilson, once upon a time, was a very gifted artist. Her first album, I really like her first album. I love Keri Hilson's first album. It is a very strong debut album. She has lots of potential. The career kind of went a little downhill after that, but she had a good potential. She was a songwriter, a singer. She's talented. Like, Keri Hilson is great. She is a emblem of the early 2010s era, the late 2000s era, when we was ushering different styles. She is a bygone product of the moment. She's not relevant as much today. However, she's made a point to consistently claim that a reason why her career took a major hit is because there was a song, Turning Me Off, or Turning Me On, or whatever it was called. I can't remember. But she did a remix in which she threw shots at, I believe, Ciara, and she specifically threw shots at Beyonce, which many people consider a big no-no, and that led to Beyonce fans and Ciara fans not really caring for her. And Keri Hilson was a writer on some of Beyonce's songs, and she was a popular songwriter. And, in many ways, she was a new girl coming to the game, trying to be solo and make a name for herself. And her career was on the rise, and she had great collaborations and made some great songs. I mean, Love Knocks You Down, Turn Me On, Turn Me Off, or whatever the song was called. But that was another hit she had. Pretty Girl Rock, which came out later. But Keri Hilson has a bunch of good songs. I mean, even Slow Dance, even though that's not a major single by her, Slow Dance was cute. Energy is also another good song. Also, I like the song Make Love or whatever it is called. That is another big banger off of her first album, In My World or whatever. But nonetheless, Grammy nominated, all the things, right? Had lots of potential. But she decides to do this remix where she throws really hard, aggressive shots at Beyonce. And as a result, people say that played a major role in her taking a back drip, right? She says that, that she kind of was in many ways forced into a situation where she didn't want to do the single, she didn't want to do the remix, she didn't want to do the song, the track, she didn't want to participate in it because of the fact that she felt like this is just not who she is. She thinks it's too controversial. But Polo the Don and the songwriter was trying to make a name for herself. A particular songwriter was involved, and Polo the Don. And at the time, she thought like if she didn't do it, this would jeopardize her career. And, she did it, and she protected people by not naming names, and she took the fall. And in a retrospect, that's why her career is where it is. And that Polo the Don and this other songwriter went off to work with other people in the art in the industry, and she, didn't. And, that's the interesting thing. Here's the thing, Keri. What we're not going to do is that. So what's interesting is that Keri Hilson is right, in one regard, right? She was not the only one in that studio that wrote Turning Me Off remix and wrote those songs, right? But to be clear with you, we're not confused by that, right? Esther Dean came out and announced that, yes, she did have a role in writing that song, right? And that she did go off later on to write songs and collaborate with Beyonce down the road. And that I guess Keri felt like she was being penalized in ways that there was a double standard towards her compared to them, right? Here's the thing, though, Keri. You did more than just that song. I was there. I was in the Beehive. I was a stan girl. I was a fan of Keri. Keri did more than just do the Turning Me Off remix. Keri consistently threw shots at Beyonce when there was chances for her to hold up a magazine, and it was during 2011 with the 4 era. She leaned into the beef. She played into it until it didn't work in her favor, okay? She benefited from it, and she also wrote lyrics, and she contributed to it. So my thing is, if you wasn't interested in it, or you just had to sing it, then you could have said at the end of the day, I didn't write those verses. You wrote some verses. You didn't write all the verses, but you also did write some verses, and some of those the verses you wrote was a stinger. But at the end of the day, I think Keri's problem was, yeah, she played into that, she threw that shot, but also Keri did not evolve as an artist. Like there was a trend in her music where it just did not age well, and that's not an issue just for her, but as an artist, I feel like her career could have lasted a little longer. But I also think that she was one of those R&B artists in that time. You think about Melanie Fiona and all these other girls, where she just did not evolve musically. Like she was good for the moment, but she just did not necessarily, evolve her sound or her music at a point where it made sense. And I think that, to be honest, Keri Hilson had a very healthy career. She had a career. She really did. Like some artists, like Ice Spice, will have a song or two, right? Keri had multiple albums. Keri had multiple singles that are still good, platinum hits. Keri can still eat off of the support of those songs. But I think sometimes what annoys me now in retrospect is seeing a lot of these, I don't want to say bitter, but I mean, let's call a spade, but a lot of these artists that careers don't necessarily thrive or blow up. Everybody's not going to have a Beyonce, Rihanna career. Everybody's not going to blow up and have that big career. And I think sometimes people like to blame, folks in the industry. Yeah, sometimes it can be that, but sometimes it's just that everybody will not have the cultural zeitgeist, right? Right? Like, let's be real. Like, Jesse McCarthy was a talented white pop artist. Do y'all know who Jesse is? Beautiful was a good song, right? But Jesse was not going to be Justin Bieber, right? Like, everybody can't be Justin Bieber. Sammy was a great R&B artist as a young bull. It was cute. There was Lil Romeo and Bow Wow and Sammy. But at the end of the day, not everybody's career was going to evolve like Bow Wow's was. Bow Wow just had it. Lil Romeo, it was cute. He was a better actor than a rapper. Sammy's okay, but he just never was, right? There was a lot of boy bands in the early 2000s, black boy bands, like Blackstreet and Immature and other ones that came out that I don't even remember anymore. But everybody's not going to be B2K. Everybody's not going to be 112. Everybody's not going to be Jagged Edge. Like, some people just have the it factor in them. You know, Sierra has had a way long career. But there were Fifi Dobsons. There was Anne-Marie's. There was other girls, right? Melanie Fiona's. But everybody's not going to have that career. And that's okay. And I think sometimes people feel like they got to scapegoat somebody and blame somebody. Sometimes it was like, yo, that was a good moment. It was hot. I had a moment. It was fun. Now I'm doing some other shit. That's okay. You know, people move on. Beyonce is an anomaly. Rihanna is an anomaly. But to a certain extent, maybe Rihanna doesn't want to do music anymore, right? But certain people are anomalies. Some people can last for 20, 30 years. But there's not that many artists that are going to have 30-year careers, right? Nelly had a wonderful run at one point in time, right? Ludacris had an exceptional run. Neo had a cute run. But at a certain point, we have newer artists, and not everybody can stand the test of time. And that doesn't mean you're a flop. That doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means that people move on. Think about movie stars, comedians, certain actors. Some people age well in the industry, and some people don't. Not everybody can be Cat Williams. You know? I would say Kevin Hart had a moment. Right, the 2010s, the early 2020s, but Kevin's faded. Like, no one wants that kind of humor no more. I don't think he was ever funny, but some people do. Tiffany Haddish was a moment. But Tiffany Haddish is not going to have the long career that Monique had, right? One of the original queens of comedy. Steve Harvey, not everybody's going to have a Steve Harvey career. Some people are going to have a Mike Epps career. Some people are going to have a Simone career, right? And some of these names y'all don't even know. But not everybody's meant to have that type of longevity. And that's just life. And that's okay. Not everybody's going to have a Martin Lawrence career. Some people have a D.L. Hughley career. And that's okay. So I just think sometimes we just have to be honest about the range that some people have. I, as a journalist, I have had a career that, from Ernestly speaking, that's been 15 years of some type of relevance. Some people have followed my career from 2010 to now 2025 and counting. Not everybody's going to have the number of years I've had in the game. Some people come and they go. Some people do it for 5 years. Some people do it for 3 years. Some people can't do it for over a decade and nearly 2 decades. Some people don't have it, and that's okay. I think that's the problem that I get when I see those Keri Hilson interviews. When I see some people try to go back and talk about why this didn't pop for them. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. Sometimes the universe is not feeling that, or sometimes that's a chapter and not a fucking book. And I think some people need to wake up and realize sometimes what you think is supposed to be your entire book is actually your chapter. That's all I'm saying. Look at some stuff that y'all doing and stop trying to expect a book when it's worthy of a chapter. Some of y'all got chapters that y'all trying to make a book. And that's why y'all trying to stretch it. This should be of this. Nah, man, it's just a chapter. It don't got to be a book. It's just a chapter. There are things in my life that are chapters. When I even look at my journalism career, right? I've had many chapters in my journalism career of a book. My career is a book. But in my book, there are chapters. Okay? Like food writing, right? Food criticism, food journalism. That's a chapter. That's not a book in my career. That's a chapter. Political journalism, yeah, that could be a book. Red carpet experiences, that might be able to be a book too. But that could be a chapter, right? But I've had many chapters in my career. And I feel like that's okay. Like, you can have chapters and still be great. So, that's my word. That's my thoughts about Keri Hilson on that. But moving along. So, for all my TV people, I am watching reunions of reality TV shows. I'm watching the Love and Hip Hop reunions. I'm watching Abbott Elementary and Getting My Life before their season premiere. I mean, their season finale comes soon. But there is a really cool show that I got to watch a sneak peek of outside of Dope Thief, which is great. But Apple TV seems to be bringing the heat. There's a show called Government Cheese with David Oyelowo, and he's an incredible actor. He was in Selma. He was in a couple of other great films and also some TV shows. He's in that Outlaw Reese Bassman Badass show. He's in that. He's in a couple of other great movies and shows. But he's a great actor, British actor, Black actor. But he's in this new show, this new series on Apple TV called Government Cheese. And it's funny because it's not about government cheese, but it's about a Black man that's set in like the 1960s, 70s. But he's made some interesting choices in his life, but he's trying to save his family. He's trying to save his marriage and more his family. And he goes through some interesting experiences that divine intervention provides. It's a very interesting story. I love it because it's kind of set in the 60s, but it's not one of those type of shows. It's a very lighthearted but funny but thoughtful, provocative show that's not rooted in trauma and violence and all of those things. And like, while shows like that are necessary, this is just a really, like, I've seen a couple episodes, a really interesting, fun, quirky show that's insightful and fun and adventurous, but also not like very hard hitting in a fun way. And David's performance is great. The family's great. And I would encourage people that if you're looking for something that's meaty and fun and good acting, but also not something that's just very heavy and traumatic where you just have to, take a breather or whatever, this is a good show for that. So I just want to just lift that show up on so many levels. And yeah, so what I got coming up this week, lots coming up this week. Stay tuned to see what's happening with the Krasner world and how that's going to play out with him and all that. I can imagine. There is no city council this week coming up because we got Easter coming up and Passover and all that. But I will be in Bethesda, Maryland. Yes, I'll be in Maryland, y'all, this week because the Alphas are having their Eastern Regional Conference. And I am going to be a delegate at that conference. We have some regional elections and I'll be a delegate participating. I will be in all alpha glory at the various workshops, events, being a true brother of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the nation's first Black intercollegiate fraternity. Okay? We're servants of all. Okay? We love, we're brotherly, we're doing it all. I'm excited. I'm excited about this conference. This is my second one, actually. When I first crossed last year, I went. This was like my first big alpha event outside of my fraternity, my chapter work. And I'm coming again. This year is in Bethesda. It was in Philly last year. This year is in Bethesda, Maryland. And I'm super excited to be able to go and just connect. There's a lot of great things happening in Alpha right now. Some big things happening for me. Some big news coming out very soon. Stay tuned on that. But I'm just having a good time. And I look forward to Maryland, especially Bethesda. I haven't really been to Bethesda before. I've always heard about it, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm staying in a really nice hotel. So to all of my Maryland people, if you're in Bethesda, if you're in the area this week from Wednesday, whatever, come through. Let's hang out. Or if you can't hang out, come see me. I'm at the hotel. We can meet at the lobby, drinks on me. Let's have a good time and catch up. So if you're in the Bethesda, Maryland area and you want to see yours truly, holla at me, get at me. And as always, be well. And of course, be best. Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.